Morning Fitness crew, Coach Jay here. This video, I'm going to address a couple of myths not myths, maybe explain some stuff around weight. First of all, I want to explain why we use weight as a metric for these challenges and stuff. And it's really only because it's really the easiest metric to measure. Literally, you step on a scale, a number pops up, and then you're done. It's like a 10-second operation. Measurements take a little longer, et cetera, et cetera. But I want you to understand this. So since weight can fluctuate, the pictures we do every 2 weeks are really, 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 really important, because as you progress through your challenge or through your program, you probably don't see the results because you see yourself every day. You know, maybe you notice your clothing size getting smaller and whatnot. So the pictures are really important. I know nobody likes take before pictures. I get it. I don't like them either. But it's really important for us to get some really objective feedback. And pictures are the best way to do that, because somebody else is taking the picture. Your coach, your accountability coach is doing the photos, or if you're doing virtual, then you're doing them yourself, but hopefully someone else is doing it. So you're not posing. I mean, you can pose it with I don't really care, but it needs to be the same. So even if you do a more creative pose, which you probably shouldn't do, it needs to be the same posture every single time. All right, so that being said, let's talk a little bit about this thing that pops up a lot when people start a program and they don't lose weight. And there's a couple of reasons why this happens. One is it could be hormone fluctuations, water retention, etc. For me, as the trainer, I kind of have a rule of 3. So if 3 days go by and the client has either increased weight or has not lost weight, then that's probably an intake problem. Because if you're going to retain water and bloat, whatever your course is, whether you eat something like, let's say, so for example, if you don't eat a lot of salty food, then all of a sudden you have a ton of salt in a couple of days, you can often retain water. But it's not going to keep going up day after day. It's going to last a day or two, then it's going to recede, or it's going to stabilize. Or if you have a hormonal fluctuation, because if you have a monthly cycle, it's the same kind of thing. You might retain water for a couple of days, but 3 or 4 days go by and you're still retaining water, then it's probably not a water issue. It's almost certainly going to be an intake issue. And nobody likes to admit that, because it's really nice to blame other things. I've been guilty of it. So that's item 1. That's water retention. Let's talk about item 2, and this is the concept of gaining muscle, and muscle weighs more than fat. Well, first of all, literally speaking, weight is weight. So muscle doesn't weigh more than fat. A pound of fat and a pound of muscle weigh the same. What muscle is more dense than body fat. Now let's talk about gaining muscle. When people talk about gaining muscle, what their assumption is that they're literally laying down more myosin and actin proteins, the proteins that link together and pull and cause muscular contraction. And the reality is, you're not going to gain pounds of actual protein in a short time unless you are heavily enhanced. Possibly if you're a raw beginner to weight training or resistance training, and you've never ever really done a program, and you might gain a couple of pounds over a couple months. That's a lot of muscle tissue, guys. Here's what's more likely to happen. This happens with me a lot of times, and pretty much anybody who's, especially if you've been muscular and you kind of not worked out and then you kind of get back into it. So I want you to imagine your body has several storage devices for energy. You have obviously your body fat. I think everybody knows that. Body fat is stored energy, which means it cannot get there without consuming energy. So this whole concept, this is a little bit side tangent, but I'm going to go with this right now, because this is a closed group. This concept that people gaining body fat and eating, but they don't eat much, and they have a thyroid thing, it's total bullshit, guys. There's no possible way on earth a human being is going to gain body fat and increase the amount of body fat they have without actually intake of calories. It is a physiological possibility. It violates the law of thermodynamics. And I'm very passionate about this, because I can't tell you how many arguments have been over the years where I explain this. So it's like if you wake up in the morning and there's magically gas in your tank and you didn't put gas in it. That's the same concept. There's no way fuel's going to get into the gas tank of your car unless somebody actually puts it in there. It doesn't happen through osmosis. There's no fuel fairy that's going to come and put gasoline in your car. Just in the same regard, there's no way a human being is going to gain body fat without eating more calories than they burn. That is just a scientific fact, and I want you to understand that. I want you to understand that, because I cannot tell you how many times people use this bullshit excuse with me. They're like, well, I have hypothyroidism. That's entirely possible. It doesn't change the law of thermodynamics. All right, let's move past that. Sorry, I got a little excited. So let's talk about gaining weight through muscle. So body fat is one method of storage of energy. That is for your long-term storage, your aerobic energy. The thing is a biological cycle called the Krebs cycle that converts body fat through the mitochondria into energy. It's not it doesn't happen quickly. That's why it doesn't happen. That's why it's a long-term thing. Another energy system of storage you have is glycogen. And glycogen is basically chains of glucose molecules stored in your muscle cells. So glycogen is used for your short-term energy. So when you're lifting or you're pushing or you're sprinting, that's your glycogen. When glycogen, and this actually comes secondary after your adenosine triphosphate, the phosphate cycle, which I've talked about many times, but that's irrelevant. That's not enough storage to really matter in weight. So glycogen molecules are stored in the muscle cells so that you can be burned for quick energy. When glycogen burns, it burns kind of dirty. It creates lactic acid. So when you are lifting or sprinting and you get that burn in your muscle, that is the glycogen cycle performing its thing. It releases phosphate molecules to create that phosphate chain, which I'll get into another time. But here's why it matters. So the glycogen molecules themselves aren't particularly heavy. They're sugar, so there's some weight. But glycogen is stored in the muscles along with water. They kind of come together. So if you are increasing your uptake of a glycogen, you are also in the intramuscular, which means inside the muscle. That also means you are increasing the intake of water into the muscle cells themselves. So if you can imagine little tiny, I don't want to say balloons, but little tiny packages that are here, and then all of a sudden they're stimulated to create a glycogen storage. So glycogen comes in and water comes in. So every single muscle cell in those muscles is going to get a little bit fuller, more full, whatever. So imagine thousands and thousands of muscle cells, each with a few more molecules of glycogen, a few more molecules of water, and then the muscle will expand. So the cool thing is, it makes you look more muscular. And this is actually kind of the science behind carb cycling for bodybuilders. So they cut carbs, or endurance athletes for different reasons. They cut the carbs to create a real deficit of glycogen, and then they super compensate so the muscles pack more glycogen into the muscle cell to give it more of a full look. We'll talk more about that. When we start doing photo shoots and if you do competition for fitness, we'll get more into details of that. It's interesting. So you may be gaining water weight not through bloating or water retention, but through the increased uptake of glycogen if you are increasing the demands of the muscular system through anaerobic contractions, resistance training, body weight, push-ups, bag work, weight training, those things that will stimulate the muscle. So if you're getting sore, that usually, not always, means your muscles have been taxed to the point where there's damage and they have to repair. The soreness is generally thought to be calcium leakage. Calcium is a trigger for the myosin actin contraction. That's a whole other topic. So that soreness is considered to be, basically the cytoplasm kind of leaks outside the muscle cell and causes damage, and calcium gets outside and blah blah blah, inflammation, yada yada yada. So, but that means your muscles are working more than they're used to. There's going to be a compensation for that. The muscle wants to put more, not only more protein in, but also more glycogen into the muscle cell for the short-term energy, which comes along with water. And water, of course, is quite heavy. So whether you're retaining water because you are bloated from salt or whatever, or hormones, or you're adding more muscles to more water to your muscle cells, your weight may go up. It will not go up indefinitely. So this is why I say if you're going 3 or 4 days and you're not losing weight, or you have a spike that lasts more than a couple of days, it's probably not water. It's almost certainly going to be caloric intake. So but all this stuff goes into why, as a trainer, if you have a day or two where your weight goes up and comes back, not a big deal. I expect that, especially if you're starting a program. 3 or 4 days and your weight's not dropping, it's intake, almost guaranteed. Which means that you are either not tracking correctly, or you're not tracking at all, or we need to make an adjustment on how much food you're taking in. If you're following the meal plan, guys, I can virtually guarantee you're not eating too much food. In fact, With the meal plans we use, usually the clients have a problem with eating enough of what we ask because it's very filling. Because it's heavy on protein, which is very satisfying, and it's heavy on green leafy vegetables that are not calorically dense. They're they're good nutrition, but they're not. There's a lot of water in them. There's not a lot of calories, so you have to eat a lot to really fill up. So that is exactly the process. There's not a lot of fat in the program, even though fat has a high satiety. It comes with a lot of calories. So for the 6 weeks, we want you guys to be really focused on caloric deficit with the best possible macronutrients. And that sounds maybe complicated, but trust me, this stuff works. And one of the challenges, I mean, this is a long video, but it's good. You guys need to see this. One of the challenges is that when people do a program that's not as strict, the results aren't dramatic. If the results aren't dramatic, people tend to drop off. If you bust your ass for 3 or 4 weeks and you're dieting and you're exercising and you lose 3 or 4 pounds, you're like, well, jeez, that wasn't worth the effort. Okay. But I'm telling you, if you follow our program for 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to have a you're going to notice significant differences in your body composition. You get excited. The goal of the 6-week program isn't to keep you on this program forever. It's to instill the habits of portion size awareness, food quality awareness, get in the habit of being mindful so that you can carry those habits past the 6 weeks. Now, those who do that can keep their body weight and their body composition in check indefinitely. Those who do the 6 weeks and go, whew, glad that's over with, and go right back to the stuff they're eating before, almost inevitably gain all the weight back. So our goal as trainers is to hopefully get you excited enough so that you maintain this. Again, this 6-week, this plan is very strict. There's no alcohol, there's very little fat. We get that. There are no cheat days on our meal plan. There are treat days. Treat days is a better way to say it, because until you have got this stuff down, it's extraordinarily easy to undo 5 or 6 days of good, clean eating with 1 or 2 bad meals. This is why. Again, there will come a time when you have this down. So once you know what your body composition needs to be and how to monitor it, you can have anything you want as long as you account for it. But that takes practice, like anything else. All right, imagine giving I don't know, that's another video. All right, so anyway, understand body weight's going to fluctuate. No big deal. The 3-day trend is what I look for as a trainer. 4 days on the outside. If 4 days go by and you haven't lost weight, it's intake. The water weight may come from bloating, and it may come from increased glycogen uptake into the intramuscular cells. So if your weight goes up a little bit, that's okay as long as it doesn't keep going up. All right, so there's a long video. Well worth it, guys. Now, I want you to understand something. The stuff that I'm teaching you guys in this is stuff that people pay a lot of money for. And I'm happy to give it for, I don't know why. It's free, but I'm giving it to you for free because I want you to have this knowledge. But knowing what to do isn't what matters. I guarantee a lot of the stuff that I've told you guys over the last few videos is probably stuff that you already knew, but if you don't apply it, it doesn't help you. And if you don't take it seriously, you're not going to get results. And the challenge is then it makes us look bad. So like, oh yeah, I did that course with IYC and I did 6 weeks, I didn't lose any weight. And you're going to blame us. You're not going to blame that you didn't follow the plan, or you didn't have, the follow through, or you didn't take care, you didn't do your weigh-ins, or you didn't track your food. You're going to blame us. Well, I mean, you wouldn't. Everybody else would. All right, Coach Jay out. Much love.